Hello and good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to this session called WOP Chef, Recipes for Enabling WOPs in Europe and Beyond. My name is Julie Perkins. I'm the officer in charge of GWOPA, hosted by UN Habitat, and I'm going to be both your host and moderator for this session today. Before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping for you. There is interpretation available for this session in French, English, and Spanish, and people will be speaking in French and Spanish. So if you're not comfortable with all three languages, feel free to click on the interpretation tabs to the right-hand side of your screen. When you do so, you will get the interpreted language on top of the original one, so you can adjust the volume, turn down the volume in your main screen so you hear only the chosen language. If by any chance it doesn't work, kindly refresh, be patient, it will work for you. We also have a chat on the bottom right-hand side for which you need to log in if it's your first time. You can do this with email or your social media account. Social media account works quite well and is quite efficient. So please do that and interact with us. Send us your comments and your questions, and we'll try to respond to them in the panel. So what is this session about? At GWOPA, we know, and this alliance knows, people who are here at the Congress know, that strong water sanitation utilities can be very effective in helping their peers cost effectively and on a not-for-profit basis improve their capacity and performance. We know that the need for improving the capacity of operators in many parts of the world is very big, and the potential to scale up this practice is very important. And this is why GWOPA, the Global Water Operators Partnerships Alliance, was created over 10 years ago to scale up these water operators partnerships, to help peer utilities help one another in an effective way. Europe, which is the focus of today's session, holds a lot of potential for this kind of effort. It's home to thousands of effective operators, water and sanitation operators, who have both capacity and a lot of willingness to help their peers to improve. European governments and institutions are also very committed to this kind of effort, the kind of efforts that WOPs can bring about, the kind of improvements that WOPs can bring about in the beneficiary utilities. However, whether or not a utility can get involved in this kind of thing depends on a wide range of factors. These are political motivations, logistical support, international recognition, and they can either impede or facilitate an operator's involvement in this type of decentralized cooperation with their peer utilities in other countries. So today, we are going to look at a panoply of situations around Europe. We're going to look at different countries, different types of stakeholders, and find out how WOPs are being done, how they're being supported. And we want to invite you to join into this effort. We're creating a group of enablers where we will have a number of sessions over the coming years talking about these kinds of issues. And we will be telling you more about that at the end, but we hope that you will also become a WOP chef through this session. Before we get into the panel discussion, we have two important presentations. The first is from our colleagues at the European Union who are supporting, working with us at GWOPA, UN Habitat, to deliver the EU WOP program, which is getting underway right now, through which 22 WOP projects for over 3 years will be starting up very shortly. And this is really a very super exciting program. We aim to build on its momentum during these 3+ years to really build momentum for more sustainable, more scaled up WOPs in Europe, in the countries of Europe, within Europe, and of course beyond, with the idea of going beyond. Before we begin these discussions, let me introduce Arno then. He is the team leader for water at the European Commission, and there he is tasked with providing global support for international partnerships and and financial investments on water-related issues, ranging from WASH to conservation and resource management. You have the floor, Arno.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, partners. I hope you can hear me well. I will not come back to the successful launch of the 22 new EU WOPs that we are going to do in the coming days. We are going to do an official launch, and so I will reply to the question, Julie, you asked me. That is, why are we investing in WOPs? So I'd like to come back a bit to the roots of our cooperation. So in June 2021, the European Parliament adopted the regulation establishing the Neighbourhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument, or Global Europe. So it recalled that the primary objective of the Union's development cooperation, as laid down in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, is the reduction, and in the long term, the eradication of poverty. And as we all know, there is no life without water, and hence no development and no poverty reduction. At the same time, our Commissioner put the reduction of inequalities and human development at the top of its priorities. Water access and sanitation will be a building block for achieving this ambition, and we need to recall again and again how water access influences inclusion and equality. So the EU, together with EIB, the European Investment Bank, has invested 3.7 billion euro of grants for water during the last multi-annual financial framework from 2021 to 2027. But this is far from being enough. As you know, there is a dramatic financing gap for the sector, and we need to leverage all types of funding: public finance, private finance, climate finance in the form of grants, subventions, bonds, equity, quasi-equity, loans, etc. But for this, we need to have an explicit, well-established, well-structured, understandable, trustworthy, and credible demand. A demand that should come from mainly the water operators. So we need to build the continuum governance, skills, and financing, of course. On one side, we know that the governance need to put in place the adequate regulatory framework, the governance. On the other side, the finance institutions and donors need to diversify and better tailor their financing offers for the sector. So that's the financing. But in the middle, the water operators need to bring an elaborated and good quality demand. And this is the skills of the continuum. The water operators are the cornerstone for a successful turnaround of the sector, therefore. So we need to break the vicious circle of low-cost recovery, deteriorating service levels, and an inability to extend networks, expand the customer base, and incapacity to attract young, talented people in the business. Water operators partnerships are at the center of the continuum, as I said, and they can help to build up opportunities, transform the utilities into digitalized, modern, attractive, well-managed, transparent, and trusted partners. Utilities that will progressively be able to absorb private sector money or develop smart PPPs that will in turn allow their development and attract young, talented people. Utilities that will be credible and listened when they interact with the governments or local authorities in an informed and evidence-based policy dialogue, a policy dialogue that will result in an improved and more efficient governance of the sector and financing. In two words, a virtuous circle instead of this vicious a circle where we are too often. So a virtuous circle that will allow the operators to climb up the maturity ladder. Water operators partnerships are probably the most cost-effective and efficient tool to achieve this transformation of the vicious circle into a virtuous circle. It can identify and bring together, so the water operators partnerships can identify and bring together in a cost-effective way most of the necessary changes to achieve this ambition. The EU has engaged for years in this type of partnerships, notably in the context of the local authorities program. For instance, between 2012 and 2016, under the EU-supported partnerships for capacity building in sustainable infrastructure development and water resources protection in the Oromia region of Ethiopia, Vitens Evides International and the Dutch water authorities Vallei M and Zuiderzeeland partnered with the Water Bureau and a number of water utilities in Oromia. the partnerships, improved customer and commercial operations among the utilities in Romania, and this led to the recovery of 2 million euros in unpaid bills. However, as we heard in a number of examples, the partnership cannot be an end in itself. It needs to be complemented by investments that will make the actual transformation visible and tangible. Working on payments or non-revenue water is not an end. If you do not have the means to transform the knowledge into investments, it may well be a coup d'épée dans l'eau, like we say in French, or in English, we may say flogging at a dead horse. This is the reason why we believe that the water operators partnerships need to be increasingly targeted in countries where we can concomitantly work on governance support and target investment programs. This is an important condition so that they can achieve their full potential. In the current programming for under the Global Europe instruments, we expect an increased support to investments in the sector in the forms of innovative financing such as blending or guarantees. This will need to match a qualitative demand. In this context, the development of WOPs, water operators partnerships, will continue to have a growing importance. Finally, let me mention that the Council of the European Union is currently preparing conclusions that should be adopted in November on water in EU external action. These conclusions recall not only the importance to upscale water finance and that needs a good demand, but also to include this in the broader context of a greener economy, taking into consideration adaptation needs, climate change, the trade-offs and synergies in the nexus water, energy, food, and ecosystems, and taking into account transboundary cooperation on the management of the resources, and last but not least, taking into account the human right for safe drinking water and sanitation. This will need stronger and stronger operators that will climb up to the level of excellence in the maturity ladder, and water authorities also that are able to work in collaboration and applying cross-sectoral approaches. These approaches should bring the benefits of resource efficiency, the benefits of sustainability, and the benefits of social acceptability. We firmly believe that the water operators partnerships can work successfully in this direction and drive this change. So we wish you a very fruitful discussion and exchanges, and hope that we will learn a lot from these exchanges so that we can improve the way we are working with the water operators. So thank you very much, and we'll stay for the next hour, and thank you for listening.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that intervention. And of course, you know, this program that we're entering into with you and the 22 partnerships that we will be launching, at least in a symbolic manner on Thursday, is extremely exciting, and we see it as really a major opportunity also to build on, you know, the credibility that these partnerships have developed through the experience of the past. So thanks very much for that. I would like to now call on Anne Lestrade, who is going to present to us a bit of a framework for enabling conditions for doing WOPs, looking at the kinds of the range of factors that can be important in determining whether or not these kinds of partnerships are possible for utilities in Europe to undertake as mentors. Anne, over to you.
So thank you very much, Julie. So I don't know, EV team, if you can put my PowerPoint on the screen. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm really sorry that it's very early for me, so I prefer to speak in French, it's my native language. Donc, je voudrais vous présenter en fait les éléments un peu importants qui peuvent permettre de passer à une échelle supérieure pour les WOP. Donc, si ça ne vous ennuie pas, le slide suivant. Voilà. Alors, quelles sont un peu les caractéristiques et les objectifs des WOP? Bon, traditionnellement, on considère qu'il y a un mentee et un mentor. Et donc, c'est vraiment une coopération de pair à pair. Et c'est ça, là, je pense, l'une des caractéristiques les plus intéressantes, c'est que c'est vraiment entre collègues, entre professionnels. Donc, on peut partager le même type, en fait, à la fois de défis et de questions techniques qui peuvent se poser. Je pense qu'on peut aussi travailler sur des partenariats à 2, 3, voire 4 opérateurs. Je pense que ça pourrait être peut-être plus facilement développé et ça pourrait peut-être permettre à certains de se lancer dans les WOP. Quelles sont les caractéristiques aussi intéressantes? C'est demand driven, c'est-à-dire que c'est vraiment celui qui est on va dire en demande du partenariat qui le design, qui le conceptualise. C'est-à-dire qu'on n'est vraiment pas dans quelque chose, on va dire plus top-down, mais un partenariat plus équilibré. Et je pense que ça peut permettre d'avoir des innovations en termes de pratique. On peut travailler beaucoup plus sur l'échange de compétences parce qu'on est dans ce partenariat qui est plus équilibré. C'est sur une base non commerciale. Et ça, je pense que c'est très important. C'est non-for-profit basis. Et cette catégorie, enfin, cet objectif qui a été placé, qui a été mis en avant dès le départ dans la constitution en fait de l'Alliance, je pense est à rappeler. Parce que parfois, si on poursuit des objectifs commerciaux, on peut donner certains exemples, il peut y avoir des biais dans la conception du partenariat. Or, le fait que là, ça soit un but non lucratif, je pense c'est un facteur aussi très important à mettre en avant. Les partenariats doivent souvent, les WOP sont souvent des partenariats de moyen et de long terme. Et ça aussi, ça fait, je pense, une des caractéristiques à préserver. C'est-à-dire qu'on se projette sur un temps plus long et donc qui permet d'avoir une vraie construction de partenariat, un vrai échange professionnel et qui peut être un facteur de stabilité et de réussite des WOP. Et ce sont évidemment de très nombreuses thématiques qui sont comment dirais-je visées, pas seulement on va dire pas seulement les classiques thèmes techniques, mais aussi c'est le grand cycle de l'eau qui peut être appréhendé. Et moi je voudrais signaler je voudrais mettre l'accent sur la gouvernance. Ça a été rappelé par le speaker précédent. Je pense que la gouvernance est un sujet d'extrême importance. J'y reviendrai après pour consolider les WOP. Slide suivant, si possible. Merci. Donc, on est très clairement par rapport à la création de GWOPA, on est dans un new momentum. C'est-à-dire qu'on voit très bien qu'on est dans une tendance d'accélération, en tout cas de développement des WOP. On a une augmentation en termes de nombre, de taille, de durée, et aussi géographiquement. Donc ça, c'est comment dirais-je, très important en termes pour consolider les partenariats et pour consolider le réseau. Dans les thèmes aussi, on élargit les thèmes. Et puis, ça a été rappelé, mais je ne vais pas m'attarder dessus. On a des comment dirais-je, des programmes au niveau européen qui soutiennent très fortement, à la fois financièrement et en termes même institutionnels, les WOP. Donc c'est le programme européen, c'est aussi des politiques nationales, hein, comme elles sont très développées, notamment aux Pays-Bas, en Allemagne. Il y a aussi la France, l'Espagne qui ont des comment dire, des spécificités un peu différentes. Mais on a de plus en plus une volonté de s'inscrire dans ce type de partenariat. Alors, moi, je voudrais maintenant, sachant que même si on est dans une tendance d'amélioration et d'approfondissement des WOP, on a quand même, on voit bien, on bute encore sur certaines difficultés pour des opérateurs. Et donc, je voudrais présenter ce qui me semble pour moi des facteurs importants d'approfondissement des WOP. Slide suivant, s'il vous plaît, illégitime. Alors, c'est comment dirais-je, c'est tiré du rapport qui d'ailleurs vous a été envoyé. C'est vraiment un draft. C'est vraiment un draft. Et il a été écrit il y a plusieurs mois et il sera réécrit. Et donc, c'est évidemment, moi, je serais très, très intéressée d'avoir vos feedbacks pour pouvoir réécrire ce rapport et intégrer beaucoup plus vos commentaires et vos propositions. Alors, un des points qui me semble extrêmement important, c'est le sujet, on va dire, le soutien politique, le support politique que peuvent avoir les WOP. Et donc ça se fait à tous les niveaux. Européen, ça a déjà été évoqué, mais évidemment au niveau national et au niveau locaux. Parce que les WOP, comme ce sont des opérateurs locaux, doivent être évidemment soutenus par les gouvernements locaux, mais aussi doivent pouvoir bénéficier d'une législation et d'un cadre institutionnel qui les facilite. Donc, très clairement, on est dans des contextes très différents selon les pays européens, que ce soit, par exemple, 1%, mais ça sera présenté plus tard, le 1% avec la coopération décentralisée en France, la coopération municipale en Espagne, les Pays-Bas qui ont mis toute une structure et toute une stratégie nationale et comment dirais-je, et déclinée à tous les niveaux pour implémenter les WOP. Donc, on est dans des contextes très différents, mais ce qui est absolument évident, c'est que la volonté politique est extrêmement forte. Là, c'est aussi mon expérience personnelle. Moi, en tant que maire adjointe de Paris, en charge de la politique de l'eau, enfin anciennement maire adjointe de Paris, en charge de la politique de l'eau et présidente de la compagnie publique d'eau Haute-Paris, je suis bien placée pour savoir que s'il y a une orientation politique extrêmement claire pour développer ce type d'échange, c'est un facteur évidemment essentiel. Mais je voudrais aussi insister sur quelque chose qui, à mon avis, n'est pas encore suffisamment développé, c'est aussi toute la pression et l'influence que peut apporter la société civile. Alors, quand je dis société civile, c'est au sens large. Ça peut être le niveau, on va dire, plus citoyen, comme le niveau des consommateurs, les syndicats, toutes les formes d'ONG diverses et variées. Mais on doit pouvoir travailler beaucoup plus en lien avec ces forces vives pour soutenir et pour inciter à ce qu'il y ait des WOP. Ça, je pense que c'est une pression salutaire qui doit venir et qui doit peser sur le niveau politique. La gouvernance, ça a été déjà évoqué. Je pense que c'est un point absolument essentiel. Et quand on dit gouvernance, c'est en effet à la fois le soutien institutionnel, organisationnel, la volonté politique de le faire, l'engagement des acteurs à tous les niveaux. Et la gouvernance, souvent, a été un peu l'angle mort de ce type de partenariat où on avait tendance à considérer que les questions techniques prévalaient, mais il me semble absolument essentiel de travailler sur ce sujet parce qu'on voit bien d'expériences qui remontent du terrain que la question de la gouvernance parfois fait vraiment la réussite ou l'échec total du WOP, et notamment dans la durée. Donc ça, c'est un point extrêmement important. Slide suivant, s'il vous plaît, illégitime. Merci beaucoup. Alors, d'autres facteurs qui peuvent être aussi très, très constructifs pour les WOP, c'est ce qui concerne plus particulièrement les opérateurs. Et là aussi, c'est beaucoup l'expérience de terrain. Comme ce sont des partenariats entre pairs, évidemment, ce qu'on mobilise beaucoup, ce sont les ressources humaines et les métiers. Les métiers partagés, en tout cas les skills, les compétences partagées au niveau des opérateurs. Et donc, évidemment, là aussi, ça dépend des contextes, que ce soit pour le mentee ou pour le mentor, mais il doit y avoir une politique de mobilisation des ressources humaines absolument construite, pensée. Donc, il faut travailler sur les motivations, sur les engagements, sur les résultats attendus, en fait, pour des deux côtés du partenariat. Et je pense que ce serait en fait souvent utile, évidemment là aussi, il n'y a pas de règle générale, mais d'avoir une forme d'équipe dédiée ou de WOP plateforme au sein des opérateurs avec une vraie stratégie de mobilisation des ressources humaines. Parce que là aussi, c'est des remontées de terrain. On a fait une session consacrée, alors là, c'est une session très acteurs français, mais les acteurs français peuvent être assez fortement mobilisés sur la coopération internationale, mais pas encore suffisamment sur les WOP. Et ce qui remonte souvent, c'est que ce sont les mêmes personnes mobilisées en interne pour le fonctionnement on va dire, du service qui peuvent être mobilisées aussi pour les partenariats. Et donc ça peut créer des difficultés assez fortes. Donc les ressources humaines avec une vraie stratégie de mobilisation. Un autre point très important là aussi, c'est que ce sont des partenariats techniques, entre guillemets, entre services, et donc tout ce qui relève, on va dire, des charges administratives au sens large, les red tape, enfin tout ce qui est en fait un peu le suivi administratif, de financement, de monitoring, enfin vraiment, qui peut être un travail assez complexe pour lequel les opérateurs ne sont pas forcément préparés et qui n'ont pas forcément envie de faire. Ça, je l'ai aussi noté, très souvent un frein à s'inscrire dans des partenariats. Donc, moi, je plaide beaucoup. Il faut réfléchir à quel niveau. Là aussi, si ça se fait au niveau local, si ça se fait au niveau national, si ça se fait au niveau d'une institution. Donc, j'ai quelques idées, mais je pense, selon les pays, c'est assez différent. Mais je pense qu'il faut créer un WOP facilitateur, c'est-à-dire qu'il faut que les opérateurs puissent être déchargés de ce type de fardeau, on va dire, administratif, organisationnel, pour qu'ils ne se concentrent que vraiment sur leur cœur de métier et donc sur ce partenariat entre pairs qui va pouvoir se construire dans l'amélioration du service. Et donc décharger de ce type de tâches. Slide suivant, s'il vous plaît. Merci beaucoup. Et donc, j'ai appelé ça Key Drivers, parce que on a évidemment, je pense, comme élément absolument fondamental le cadre légal et institutionnel, je l'ai déjà évoqué, et avec, je pense, une force supplémentaire s'il y a une stratégie à tous les niveaux. Quand je dis à tous les niveaux, c'est-à-dire que dans un pays, s'il y a une stratégie au niveau national avec un cadre juridique qui aide les WOP et qui peut être décliné après au niveau des agences, au niveau des opérateurs, au niveau des local authorities, enfin des gouvernements locaux. Donc, il faut vraiment avoir une stratégie d'implantation des WOP vraiment multi-stakeholder. Après, il y a la question évidemment du financement. Donc ça a été là aussi évoqué. C'est évidemment une clé de succès. Mais moi, je voudrais insister sur le fait, quand on parle de financement, qu'il y a deux choses qui me semblent très importantes. C'est l'inscription dans le temps. C'est-à-dire que là aussi, pour que des opérateurs aient envie de s'engager, c'est qu'ils puissent avoir la certitude que le financement va suivre dans la durée. Et donc, ça plaide très clairement, et alors là, je me tourne vers mon prédécesseur, ça plaide évidemment pour que, par exemple, le type de programme européen qui a été lancé puisse être continué. C'est-à-dire que s'il y a des WOP, des opérateurs qui sont engagés dans ces WOP et qui veulent s'inscrire sur un temps long, parce que c'est ça qui fait la caractéristique justement des WOP, il faut que le financement suive. Un autre point qui me semble aussi important, c'est le lien avec l'investissement. Les WOP sont vraiment un partenariat très utile pour inscrire des politiques d'investissement là aussi dans la durée et dans l'efficience. C'est-à-dire qu'il faut vraiment coupler la question des WOP avec des programmes d'investissement pour améliorer, on va dire, la capacité des utilities. Mais moi, il y a un point aussi sur lequel je voudrais terminer, c'est que on parle, bon, le financement, c'est évidemment important. Je pense que la gouvernance est un sujet absolument majeur, parfois plus important que le financement, et je l'ai déjà dit précédemment. Et un autre point aussi qui est la reconnaissance, parce que ça peut sembler peut-être un peu anecdotique pour certains ici, mais peut-être aussi parce que moi, avec mon expérience de femme politique et en même temps de dirigeante d'un opérateur, je sais que c'est très important, et pas seulement pour les élus, pas seulement pour comment dirais-je, les exécutives, enfin pour les politicians, c'est aussi très important pour les opérateurs d'être reconnus dans ce qu'ils font. Et donc, je pense qu'il faudrait réfléchir à avoir un système, je sais pas, de label, j'ai appelé ça labeling system, mais je pense que je crois vraiment nécessaire que cette forme de reconnaissance et de visibilité de ce que font les opérateurs au sein d'un WOP me semble extrêmement utile. Donc, il faudrait avoir aussi des campagnes d'information, des campagnes de communication autour des WOP afin de mobiliser les opérateurs sur ce type de partenariat. Voilà, et donc ma conclusion, merci pour le slide suivant, Yvitine, c'est que personnellement, moi je suis absolument convaincue que c'est un outil extrêmement efficace pour répondre aux SDGs et pour répondre on va dire, à l'agenda international et répondre à la nécessité en fait d'améliorer l'accès à l'eau et à l'assainissement dans le monde. Mais il y a des facteurs en effet qui peuvent permettre de passer à une échelle supérieure que je viens de mentionner. Merci beaucoup de votre attention.
And thank you very much for that presentation. I found it really very interesting, and I would like to bring everyone's attention to the fact that, oh, sorry, my camera's off, to the fact that this report upon which Anne's presentation was based exists in the bottom of your session page. So without leaving the session, if you sort of scroll down to the side, you'll see some resources at the bottom. And one of them is this paper in draft format that Anne has prepared for GWOPA, looking at these questions, mapping out this range of factors. And I think it's quite a useful piece. I think it's a useful reflection for everyone who's wanting to get engaged in this kind of an exercise to really look at where they have where they're being supported and where they maybe have some blockages, and to also draw examples from colleagues in similar situations in different countries. So this is what our session is about, and we call on you to take a look at that paper and to also comment on it, add some examples. You're also welcome in the chat to add your own experiences, your own constraints, factors that are important for you in enabling WOPs. And now the next speaker comes from a place where they have a lot of things in order when it comes to doing WOPs. They're very well enabled, let's say. This is the Netherlands, a country that is where where WOPs basically originated to a large extent, and where they've certainly been perfected over the years and have grown a lot. In terms of this question of working at all levels, at the local level, different layers of finance, and support also at the national level. The Netherlands has some excellent experience to bring to the table. And we have with us today Frodo van Oostven, I hope I'm pronouncing it properly, who is the CEO at World WaterNet in Amsterdam. And it would be great for Frodo to tell us about how they're doing WOPs at World WaterNet, a little bit about the size, nature of activities, and then what also might be constraining or enabling you to do these partnerships. Over to you, Frodo.
Good morning, all. Thanks for having me, and great to be inspired already by the previous two speakers. So thanks for having me. It's always scary a bit to sort of be behind your laptop, working from home, and to address the audience, but I will do my utmost best. My name is Frodo. I'm since 1.5 years the new director of World WaterNet. So for me, it's an honor to step into an organization that's already there for sort of 15 years. But the experience in the Netherlands is over a longer period of time. It has to do indeed also with government regulations. So the drinking water utilities have the ability to strengthen their capacity using peer-to-peer partnerships. So I think that's great to have. But I think the key thing is to learn from each other. And therefore, I'm great to be in the GWOP partnership here, to at least to learn from others and to share a little bit more what we are doing. Myself, I'm a sort of a tri-sector athlete, I would say. I've worked in the private sector, I worked for NGOs, social enterprises, and I had my own company. I returned 2 years ago back from Asia, where I lived for 5 years. So for me, it's also nice to absorb the Netherlands again by being a sort of a tourist back into your own country. But I will keep it short. I have some slides that I still would like to share because I think it gives sort of a picture. And I think also what Anne mentioned before, the internal WOP platform is something that we created within WaterNet. I will go a bit fast. So hopefully that will work out fine. So the power of collaboration. I would share some stories from Amsterdam. We created a business plan, and I think on the right you see here the WOPs are at the center of our business plan. What I heard before as well, to look at investments, spin-offs. So I think the key is we work long term, and that gives us the opportunity to be sort of a trusted and a neutral advisor to the WOPs that we're working with. We are part of a bigger community. I think we have 30 projects. The WOP portfolio from our side is 8 million in multiple countries. So I think that's a great work of the last years. Why do we do the things that we do? To help others to improve their performance, but also to build capacity. That's also why is WaterNet doing this, because of the pool of 2,000 colleagues. I would say on a monthly basis, 100 people are working on international projects. So almost in half of the teams that we have, people are working on international projects because they would like to share, they would like to learn. It's about personal leadership and so forth. So this is the utility. I think the beauty is that we are a water utility, but also a water authority. That's quite unique. We're a water cycle company in Amsterdam, but the region is quite big. So here you can see Amsterdam and the authority, different activities, but all integrated into WaterNet, and we are a separate foundation. So I think that's what Anne mentioned, an internal WOP platform. To give you a bit of a feeling there, this is how we're institutionalized within World WaterNet. So we're focusing on finance and risk. We have an audit and risk committee. We focus on partnerships. That's a crucial role within our team. Human resources, I think that's the heart of the work that we do. It's about people, and we have a knowledge agenda. In every project that we're working, we always focus on these, led also by the guiding WOP principles, focusing on governance, leadership, integrated water resource management, focusing on efficiencies, non-revenue water, and the financial sustainability. So I think that's crucial. Why? One more time, I think it's long term. It takes time to build trust and relationships. We always focus on what's needed locally. So that's the constant dialogue that we have. By being around, we have proven to be a catalyst for investments. So sometimes by having the capacity for the coming 10 years, for example, others, investment banks and so are willing to step in. We can do the small bit, I always say, but we can do the human bit. We can do the personal relationship, the capacity building. It's peer-to-peer and it's very practical. So people in Amsterdam that are working on wastewater are connected to the people in, let's say, Jordan or West Africa. It was mentioned before as well. all the Dutch water utilities are working together as waterworks, and Vitens International is leading that. We are part of that with 5 projects. And the Blue Deal is another international program from the Dutch water authorities, in which we are also with 5 programs. So it's great to also cross-learn from both of these programs. This is to make you a bit afraid, but this is sort of all the WOPs that we are working with. So it's not that we're working with countries, but with other WOPs in, let's say, West Africa, East Africa, but also Middle East. And we have some knowledge partners, as you see in the bottom, from Singapore, New York, but also from SIAP. So I think it's a great and beautiful mix. So we have a knowledge roadmap in which we define different topics out of Waternet, and we have a dialogue with others. So I think that's also my takeaway for today, to have on these conversations on the knowledge side together. It's sort of a short end, but then I will stop this as well, because I think it's also nice to see each other. But hopefully this gives you a feeling of what we're doing. So it's quite a lot, but hopefully with the years of experience, we can share what we have. We are a public utility, so everything we have here I'm willing to share, and looking forward to learn from others. Thank you for your time.
Frodo, thank you. It's so actually great to see what Waternet is able to do and what other utilities in the Netherlands are able to do because of this kind of alignment that goes on. There's such an agreement on different levels that this is something that is good and possible. And so the pieces are coming together there. One of the things I find particularly interesting about the way World Waternet works, and a real value that it's also bringing to the EU WOP project, is its full water cycle approach. I think this is a real advantage. So a utility, it's also working very much with its city and surroundings, and not looking exclusively at this sort of linear water sanitation services kind of stream. I think that that's a great asset to this program, and it'd be great to hear more about also how you make that work later in your interventions, perhaps.
Yeah, thanks.
The next speaker will be speaking in Spanish, so if you need interpretation, you might want to put that on now. We are very pleased to have Sergi Grau, who is working at Aguas Manresa in Catalonia in Spain. And he has an industrial engineering degree from the University of Catalonia, Politécnica de Catalunya. And he has quite a lot of experience in technical innovations at Manresa, in studies and innovation in the sector. They're actually one of the this operator submitted an excellent proposal to the EU WOP program that was not in the end actually supported. As maybe some of you know, we had a very strong response to the call for expressions of interest to the EU WOP program, and we needed to cut out a lot of very strong, excellent programs. So obviously one of the barriers, that we face in doing WOPs is the available finance. But we'd like to hear from Sergi about how they're doing WOPs, from his perspective, how things are going. Over to you, Mr. Grau.
Muchas gracias, Julie. A ver, primero, muchas gracias. Segundo, me siento impresionado ante todos ustedes. Yo soy un técnico de una empresa de agua. A ver, ¿quién es Aguas de Manresa? ¿Qué somos? Aguas de Manresa es una empresa pública que lleva el ciclo integral del agua en una pequeña ciudad cerca de Barcelona. Solo tenemos 80.000 abonados. Recibimos el agua a través de una acequia medieval del siglo XIV de 27 kilómetros, y nuestro primer depósito de red de agua se instaló en el 1865. Somos una empresa con mucha historia. En esta empresa, la empresa donde yo trabajo, el servicio público siempre lo habíamos entendido de puertas hacia adentro, hacia nuestros abonados, hacia los municipios que gestionamos. Gestionamos cerca de una veintena de municipios al entorno de Manresa. Así tenemos una pequeña fundación por donde pasan 10.000 estudiantes anuales, estudiantes básicamente de la comarca. Nunca nos habíamos planteado que nuestra experiencia y nuestro conocimiento, nuestro know-how, fueran útiles para empresas de fuera nuestro entorno inmediato. Hace 2 años hubo un cambio importante en la empresa. Se cambió el gerente, el anterior gerente, el señor Alaver, después de 38 años, se jubiló. A ver, él fue quien nos expandió, quien municipalizó el servicio, pero al final la edad es la edad y se jubiló. El nuevo gerente, con una carrera internacional en el sector del agua y con una visión muy diferente, más amplia, nos está empujando a salir fuera de nuestro mundo, de nuestra zona de confort. En el entorno hay empresas suministradores de agua con una población servida, o sea, con un tamaño muy similar al nuestro, y que hoy en día se están encontrando con problemas que nosotros tuvimos que resolver hace 10, hace 20, hace 30 años. Y que a la vez ellos están resolviendo problemas que nosotros aún no hemos llegado ni a plantearnos. En nuestra empresa hay personal que resolvió esos problemas. Y desde un punto de vista de servicio público, de operador público, es un conocimiento que hemos de poner al servicio de la comunidad. Al final, la transmisión del conocimiento es la clave. Ya lo han comentado diversos ponentes. Hay que transmitir el conocimiento. Hay que poner este conocimiento que tú tienes, que tu experiencia, al servicio de otros. Por eso somos operadores públicos. Los problemas que nos enfrentamos, al final, las pequeñas empresas de agua son los mismos en todos sitios. Que si la disponibilidad de recursos, que si el rendimiento, que si la medición, se hablaba de agua no medida, de mantenimiento, etcétera, ya que el objetivo es común, es el servicio y la calidad. Y las instalaciones y tecnologías usadas, además, son muy similares en todos sitios. Para resolver un buen número de los problemas que pueden plantear en el suministro de agua, no se requiere grandes inversiones. Lo que se necesita es conocimiento, experiencia y acompañamiento. Por algún sitio ya se ha hablado de los factores limitantes. ¿Cuál es nuestro gran factor limitante? Nuestro gran factor limitante es a la vez nuestra mejor baza, ya que nos permite trabajar con ciudades de tamaño muy similar. Nuestro factor limitante es que somos pequeños. Nuestra facturación son 20 millones de euros. Somos 150 trabajadores. En la convocatoria de WOP, en la que no llegamos a entrar, que Julie, agradezco sus palabras, que se cerró este verano, fue la primera vez que tomamos parte en este tipo de convocatorias. En este punto es donde aparecen 2 actores claves: Enginyers Sense Fronteras e Iniciativas de Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo, que han actuado como catalizadores. Sin ellos, tampoco habríamos sabido a quién buscar ni cómo plantear el proyecto, ya que no tenemos experiencia internacional, no tenemos experiencia fuera de nuestra comarca. Como ya he comentado, nuestra empresa es una empresa pequeña y uno de los problemas al plantear una WOP es que no podemos prescindir del tiempo y conocimiento de 1 o 2 personas, ya que en la plantilla somos 150. Tenemos un número limitado de técnicos. Entonces, ¿cómo se planteó la WOP? Oye, nosotros tocamos dentro del sector del agua, dentro del ciclo integral del agua, tenemos gente especializada en todos los ámbitos. La manera que planteamos la WOP, y que así lo expusimos, es integrar un buen número de técnicos en la WOP, no tener un técnico, no. Me parece que fueron 9 o 10, y en las empresas con las que estuvimos hablando, de Bolivia concretamente, buscar sus pares, buscar sus homólogos, buscar un contacto entre 2 técnicos, directo. ¿Por qué? Porque al final, si los problemas son similares, los problemas de aquí y de ahí son similares, has de poder entenderte con ese técnico. Podrás empatizar con él. Podrás compartir experiencias. Pues bueno, muchas gracias, Julie. Es el cómo planteamos o nuestra experiencia en la WOP.
Mr. Graf, thank you very much. I think I think it's quite interesting also the contrast that we're seeing here between, a small local operator in Catalonia, versus Amsterdam, in a country where there's been ongoing support for many, many years. And one of the things I have to say, we tried to do very much in this call for the EU WOPs was to make more space for this, for the smaller operators, the newcomers coming in. But there's inevitably a challenge there, and you highlighted it well. This question of logistics, and I mean, the strength of WOP is the peer support between it, one technician and another speaking the same language. You're not development agents. This is not your expertise writing these kinds of proposals and so on. And so how can we accommodate that so that, we can include some of these smaller operators that also have a great deal to give also in terms of communicating about also, certain values of solidarity and so on, and make that possible. So this is something we'd also like to look at in the coming years, maybe drawing on different Spanish actors also who could continue to contribute to this effort to make these kinds of partnerships possible. Okay, thank you so much for that. I'd like to move over now to Mélodie Bloisel. She is from PSO. She's a chef de projet, and I have to say that I've never known how to translate that. So maybe Mélodie can tell us what that means in English. But she is working with PSO, which is a very important, very interesting French institution that was created to support this kind of work, to support local operators to make use of some of the let's say the legal mechanisms that exist in France to do decentralized cooperation and support peers internationally. So Mélodie, over to you.
Merci. Oui, donc effectivement, par rapport aux intervenants précédents, le PSO ne porte pas en propre de partenariat de type WOP, mais agit en tant que stimulateur, accompagnateur de ce type d'initiative. Du coup, on est une association française. Nos activités, globalement, s'inscrivent dans les objectifs de développement durable 6 pour l'accès à l'eau et l'assainissement pour tous, pour la progression vers cet objectif. Et du coup, l'une de nos activités principales, ça consiste justement à stimuler, encourager, accompagner les coopérations décentralisées et non gouvernementales françaises, qui impliquent donc des collectivités territoriales françaises et des associations françaises, à encourager leur coopération avec des homologues dans des pays d'Afrique, d'Asie, d'Amérique latine, avec des autorités locales et également des associations locales. Du coup, le PSO, effectivement, on a une vision assez globale de la façon dont agissent ces acteurs-là. Donc, on peut en dépeindre un petit peu le paysage global. Du coup, je vais peut-être commencer par préciser un petit peu qui sont en fait les acteurs français, les autorités locales françaises qui sont en capacité de porter ces partenariats de type WOP, qui sont finalement les mentors en France. Et j'ai précisé quelle est leur marge de manœuvre pour porter des partenariats de type WOP, en précisant un peu le cadre réglementaire. Et puis ensuite, je dégagerai un petit peu les freins qu'on peut observer au PSO et des pistes d'amélioration, enfin des pistes qu'on pourrait développer pour stimuler davantage ces partenariats. Du coup, les entités, enfin les organismes qui sont en capacité de porter des projets de type WOP, pour revenir un petit peu à la base, en fait, la réglementation française confie les compétences de l'eau et l'assainissement à des intercommunalités, donc de toute échelle, aussi bien des petites intercommunalités que des grandes métropoles, que des syndicats intercommunaux. Et ce sont du coup ces intercommunalités qui sont autorités organisatrices des services d'eau et d'assainissement et qui du coup sont en charge de la gestion patrimoniale, de l'organisation des services, de la maîtrise d'ouvrage pour les travaux et également qui décident du mode d'exploitation des ouvrages. Le mode d'exploitation des ouvrages, du coup, peut être géré en régie, par des régies publiques, ou confié à des délégataires privés, et sachant que dans ces deux cas de figure, il y a différentes formes juridiques et administratives, mais globalement, il y a ces deux grandes tendances. Du coup, ces intercommunalités, effectivement, les communes ne sont plus en charge de l'eau et l'assainissement en France depuis quelques années. Donc, il y a encore quelques exceptions, parce que c'est des réglementations qui sont encore assez récentes. Donc, du coup, ces intercommunalités, quelle est leur marge de manœuvre pour porter des partenariats de type WOP? Donc, plus globalement, savoir que le cadre français, la réglementation française donne des possibilités très larges et très souples aux collectivités territoriales pour s'engager globalement à l'international. Du coup, carrément, la capacité de s'engager à l'international constitue vraiment une compétence qui est inscrite dans le corpus réglementaire qui encadre les compétences assignées aux collectivités. Donc, toute collectivité territoriale, de toute taille, de toute échelle, a légitimement la possibilité de porter des actions à l'international dans tout secteur d'intervention, y compris qui ne sont pas forcément corrélés avec les champs de ses compétences qu'elle exerce sur son propre territoire. Et pour le secteur de l'eau et l'assainissement, donc là, on trouve la loi Oudin-Santini, qui a déjà été évoquée et qu'on connaît bien, qui permet justement aux collectivités territoriales qui sont autorités organisatrices des services d'eau et d'assainissement en France, elle leur permet de dédier jusqu'à 1% du budget de ces services à des actions de solidarité internationale qui portent sur les secteurs de l'eau et l'assainissement. Donc voilà, on a quand même des possibilités assez larges et assez souples, avec en plus un champ de possibilités administratives et financières renforcées pour le secteur de l'eau et l'assainissement. Mais du coup, comme ça a été évoqué tout à l'heure en introduction, il y a du coup ces possibilités assez larges qui sont largement utilisées et exploitées par les collectivités territoriales françaises. Mais pour autant, les partenariats vraiment de type WOP restent quand même minoritaires. Du coup, au PSO, on recense ces engagements financiers annuellement, les engagements financiers pris globalement par les collectivités territoriales en solidarité internationale pour l'eau et l'assainissement. Et ils s'élèvent par exemple en 2020 à 15,4 millions d'euros, mobilisés par plus de 170 collectivités. Donc c'est quand même, voilà, on voit que c'est une mobilisation assez large, même s'il y a de nombreuses collectivités territoriales en France. C'est estimé à peu près 1000, je n'ai pas de chiffre exact. Mais il y a quand même un dynamisme important. Et par exemple, en 2020, on est à peu près 360 projets en cours de solidarité internationale sur l'assainissement. Mais parmi ces 360, on a seulement un quart qui s'apparente réellement à une coopération décentralisée qui implique un partenariat entre une collectivité française et une collectivité partenaire étrangère. Mais en plus de ça, parmi ce quart de ces projets sur ces 360, tous ne s'apparentent pas vraiment à des partenariats de type WOP. On peut être sur des partenariats qui sont plus de l'ordre politique, avec un fort engagement politique, ou alors qui impliquent des services dédiés aux relations internationales au sein des collectivités. Mais on a recensé, par exemple, en 2020, seulement, enfin c'est déjà pas mal, mais 25 partenariats de coopération décentralisée que vraiment on peut désigner de WOP, c'est-à-dire qui impliquent un partenariat entre services d'eau et d'assainissement, de la collectivité française qui a les compétences d'eau et d'assainissement, et de la collectivité partenaire à l'étranger. Donc voilà globalement le paysage de qui sont les acteurs en France qui peuvent porter ces partenariats et où on en est globalement en France au niveau du développement de ce type de partenariat. Donc du coup, pour finir, je vais dégager quelques freins qu'on peut cibler qui pourraient freiner un petit peu le développement de ces partenariats, donc qui ont déjà été un peu évoqués par Anne Nostrat tout à l'heure. Mais j'y reviendrai rapidement. Et puis au PSO, quels sont les axes de communication, sensibilisation, quels sont les messages qu'on essaye de porter en réponse à ces objections qui peuvent apparaître. Donc la première grande question qui peut se poser, c'est la question de la légitimité et la pertinence d'une collectivité territoriale française à qui on a assigné des compétences pour organiser des services publics sur son propre territoire en France, sa légitimité et la pertinence de son engagement à l'international. Du coup, oui, cette question soulève un petit peu retranscrit des questionnements qu'on peut percevoir ou qu'on peut craindre de la part des usagers des services et également tout simplement de la part des agents des collectivités et aussi des élus de la collectivité. Et donc au PSO, ce qu'on essaye de porter comme message par rapport à ça, c'est de vraiment rappeler que l'action internationale des collectivités territoriales, c'est, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, réellement une compétence qui est légitimement assignée par la réglementation française et donc les collectivités territoriales peuvent, en toute légitimité, réellement porter des actions à l'international. Et d'ailleurs, de nombreuses le font, et les collectivités les plus importantes ont souvent des services de relations internationales dédiés à ces questions. Le deuxième message important qui se relie plus à la loi Oudin-Santini, c'est la notion de solidarité entre usagers qu'introduit cette loi, en fait, puisqu'elle permet d'utiliser une partie des recettes issues de la facturation aux usagers des services d'eau d'assainissement en France, d'utiliser une partie de ces recettes pour en faire bénéficier des usagers de services d'eau d'assainissement de collectivités partenaires à l'étranger. Sachant quand même, on peut justement craindre des questionnements des usagers et des services français là-dessus, mais ça reste quand même une charge minime qu'on estime à 1 euro par an. Donc voilà, cette notion de solidarité entre usagers peut être assez importante à rappeler dans la communication qui accompagne ces dispositifs. Et enfin, tout simplement, ce que je pense qu'on est tous d'accord et sensibilisés là-dessus, c'est de rappeler tout simplement que l'implication des collectivités territoriales françaises qui exercent les compétences au assainissement, qui ont donc toute cette expertise de gestion patrimoniale, d'organisation des services, de gouvernance des services locaux. Donc toute cette expertise est bien évidemment pertinente à mobiliser dans le cadre d'un partenariat avec une collectivité étrangère pour accompagner la création, le développement, le renforcement des services d'eau et d'assainissement. Mais il y a peut-être en France une petite question que je voulais soulever, c'est le fait que, comme j'ai dit en introduction tout à l'heure, l'exploitation des services est souvent gérée par une entité qui est juridiquement, administrativement, enfin financièrement, pas directement liée à la collectivité territoriale, aussi bien quand il s'agit de délégation de services publics que certaines formes de régie autonome. Donc là-dessus, la mobilisation de l'expertise de l'exploitant des services est liée à la volonté de la collectivité territoriale à laquelle il est rattaché. Donc ça nécessite de la coordination et il faut que ce soit la collectivité qui détient la compétence au assainissement qui décide de s'engager dans ces partenariats. Par exemple, Haute-Paris et la ville de Paris ont mis en place ce fonctionnement, mais ce n'est pas forcément évident pour toutes les collectivités qui ont des régies ou des délégations distinctes. Donc la deuxième grande question qui peut se soulever, qui traduit un peu les freins qu'il peut y avoir autour du développement de ces partenariats WOP, c'est tout simplement l'intérêt que ça représente pour la collectivité française elle-même de s'engager dans ces processus, au-delà d'une sorte d'altruisme pour accompagner le développement de services partenaires. C'est vrai que, comme ça a été dit tout à l'heure, comme c'est une compétence qui est certes légitime, mais facultative, eh bien, son exercice dépend vraiment fortement de la volonté politique des élus, et d'autant plus quand il s'agit vraiment d'un partenariat WOP qui implique les services, et donc du coup qui implique la volonté de mobiliser des ressources humaines de la collectivité au sein de ces partenariats. Donc il y a vraiment l'engagement politique est vraiment décisif. Du coup, ce qu'on essaie de porter comme message pour ce qui est de faire ressortir l'intérêt qu'il y a pour la collectivité française de s'engager dans ce dispositif, il y a le fait que cet engagement peut vraiment être vu comme un levier de dynamisme au sein de la collectivité en faisant travailler les services en transversalité, par exemple des services relations internationales, les services techniques en charge de l'eau et l'assainissement, des services techniques sur d'autres sujets, quand il s'agit de partenariats qui peuvent être sur des thématiques multisectorielles. Et également, il y a aussi cette question du lien avec les exploitants, délégataires ou régies, qui peut aussi être animée au travers de ces partenariats. Donc il y a cette notion-là, mais également au sein même des services d'eau et d'assainissement, ces dispositifs peuvent vraiment s'inscrire dans une démarche un peu stratégique de gestion des ressources humaines, pour amener une forme d'attractivité aux fiches de poste liées aux services d'eau et d'assainissement, et aussi pour valoriser les compétences des agents dans d'autres cadres, et pour stimuler les motivations des agents. Donc ça peut vraiment être utilisé comme ça, et il y a certains WOP parmi les 25 qu'on a recensés qui le font vraiment. Et enfin, c'est vrai que ces partenariats à l'international sur l'assainissement peuvent aussi participer un peu au dynamisme du territoire carrément de la collectivité et son rayonnement à l'international. Il peut y avoir aussi une façon de communiquer sur ces projets qui s'inscrit dans une démarche de sensibilisation, d'éducation populaire aux questions du changement climatique, aux questions de la solidarité internationale, qui peut aussi inclure des acteurs de la société civile, des associations du territoire de la collectivité en France, qui peuvent être inclus dans les partenariats avec les collectivités étrangères. Et ça peut donc vraiment faire partie d'une forme de dynamisme du tissu associatif local sur le territoire français. Voilà, donc c'est globalement les messages que je voulais dégager, avec cette clarification un peu de qui sont les autorités qui peuvent porter les partenariats type WOP et qu'est-ce qu'on observe au PSO comme frein et quelles sont nos pistes de communication pour continuer à stimuler le développement des partenariats WOP et la solidarité internationale sur l'assainissement en général.
Melody, merci beaucoup. It was very, very interesting and very rich with not just a recounting of what you're doing, but also a lot of good ideas for how to make it better and how to do more WOPs and more sustainable WOPs as well in France. I won't comment too much as I have a tendency to do. I need to remind all speakers to speak a little more slowly because the interpreters are having a hard time following, and Melody packed in a lot of information there. Annika, who I have not yet introduced, maybe I can do that right now, has a question. One of our panelists has a question for Melody. If you don't mind, Annika, maybe what I will do is we'll go right through, and when it's and then because we have a couple more presentations to make, and then we can open up to all for questions, if that's okay. Okay, so I am now handing over to our German speaker, Heiko Heidemann, who is a senior project manager for GIZ. He's been with GIZ since 1995. He knows water and sanitation in and out. He's worked in Southeastern, currently his focus is regional, is Africa and Southeastern Europe. And he has a lot to do with capacity development, and he's currently responsible for the implementation of the German WOP pilot program called Utility Platform for Strengthening Partnerships of Municipal Utilities in the Water Sector Worldwide. Heiko, we are anxious to listen to your words.
Thanks a lot, Julie. You introduced already good, so thanks for the opportunity to introduce our pilot program as part of the, as it seems, international movement of WOPs. Very interesting, and I'm grateful to be part of this audience today. So our pilot project started in June 2019, and the present phase is going up to June 2023. As you already said, GIZ is commissioned by our Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development to implement that pilot program. And in this pilot program, we are working closely with two German associations to open us the way to engage the German water utilities. That is the one hand, German Water Partnership, on the other hand, the Association of Municipal Enterprises in Germany. And of course, most important stakeholders in our program are the municipal utilities itself, since they are implementing our WOP programs. The objectives of the utility platform or our program are, of course, contributing to the SDGs, notably 6, water, clean water and sanitation. And our task is also to build structures for future partnerships between municipal utilities. We would like to make the German expertise in those municipal utilities available to strengthen the capacities in a peer-to-peer approach, which was mentioned already in, well, that's the basic of the WOPs, I guess, to enhance, strengthen the capacities in our partner utilities. That sounds maybe like a one-way expedition, but of course, it's also the German utilities who benefit from those partnerships. First of all, they make international experience, and they become, very important in my opinion, a more attractive employer. As we all know, even in Germany, in Europe, we have also a lack of skilled personnel. And if you can offer as an employer international activities, you might, or I'm quite sure that you're more attractive as young applicants for your jobs you are advertising. In our WOPs approach, we see WOPs actually as complementary new development cooperation instrument or a new development cooperation tool to our respective activities in the countries. I mean, we have a lot of water programs going on in many countries worldwide, and we see WOPs as an additional instrument, not a standalone, having a WOP and nothing else around. So we see it as a complementary tool to our activities in the countries to create synergies. So, for example, WOPs can also make the partner utilities or contribute to make them fit for finance. And that is also one important aim we have to create or to strengthen capacities to enable our partners to become fit for finance, to acquire finance. In the midterm, one of our objectives is also not to concentrate on the water sector only. So we would also like to see partnerships in other sectors of the communal services like solid waste, energy. So concerning the presently running WOPs, we started with 4 pilot partnerships, and the good news is that we are growing. So up to now, we have around 8 partnerships. One, of course, is also financed by the EU WOPs, which were already mentioned. So, but we see us as the German platform as a platform for all WOPs with German participation. So we would like to have this platform as a kind of information base for all utilities which are interested in international cooperation, which are interested in a WOP. So we cater also for those which are not financed necessarily through our ministry, but also through other sources. And in that way, we also include them in our training activities. So our offers are also open for those who are not necessarily financed by our ministry, but we are there for them as well. So no projects without challenges. So one question we have to answer is about the potential in Germany, about how many utilities, what is actually the number of utilities which are ready to engage in international cooperation. We are working on that presently. And we also think that we are not looking necessarily to only the big utilities. I think also smaller utilities can make a difference and can engage in WOPs. Another challenge for us in Germany is financing. We don't have, as we have heard from the Dutch colleagues or from France, that there's a 1% rule, that there's money available from the revenues which can be used for international cooperation activities. That is, according to the constitutions, the statutes of the German utilities, not possible here, because no revenue can be used for external activities, development cooperation activities. They have to use their revenues only in their communal areas. So finance must come from outside. So we have to develop financing models, maybe following the Dutch or the France examples. Then, of course, project terms are up to 4 years in when it comes to development cooperation project financed by BMZ. And this time, the project duration might not be enough to have long-term. We are always talking about long-term partnerships. So 4 years, well, I don't consider long-term. But of course, one can extend project durations and have new projects, and we are looking for financing models. Another point I would like to raise is competences in international cooperation. So our technical personnel in the utilities, they are not necessarily experts in international cooperation. That's where I think they need support. They need support in international communication, in intercultural communication, in well, COVID didn't help, so also in virtual sharing of expertise in virtual work. So there's a lot of areas where we should offer trainings also to our technical experts coming from the utilities, being active in the WOPs. Another point is for us joint project planning, monitoring. Also here, the utilities usually, as it was said before, they don't write applications. They are not really forced to do project planning according to international planning rules as we have it in JIZ. So also here, to be able to really show what is the added value of WOPs, I think we have to do proper project planning also in WOPs, including smart indicators that we can show really what is the progress of what brings a WOP in also towards SDGs, for example. And of course, a challenge was and is for all of us, I think, the COVID-19 pandemic. Traveling was hardly possible. And since, in my opinion, those partnerships live from the personal contact, from seeing each other, from knowing the plants, from working on the plants together, when traveling is not possible, okay, that makes it not easier. And I think virtual cooperation cannot substitute that personal contacts by 100%. So we are looking forward, and traveling has started in our program at least. So the contacts are reinforced, and I hope that we can make even more progress in the WOPs as they have made in the last 2 years, when traveling is really coming and the personal contacts are increased. So that would be all from my side for the time being. And thanks again for the opportunity.
Heiko, thank you so much. I'm getting what's really great. Bow, please. What's really great is I'm getting lots of requests from the speakers to talk to one another, which I think is like the proof that this is something that people like to share with one another about and need to share with one another about. But I'm going to continue with my plan, which is to keep going through the speakers, because we actually have 3 more speakers. And I do request that you keep your interventions pretty short, and then we can ask those questions at the end. So now I'm very happy to introduce a colleague from Finland, who is new to the WOP world. Finland has been making efforts to get WOPs going, and they also have a WOP project that they are engaged in as part of the EU WOP program. And so let's hear from our colleague there to find out more about what's happening in Finland. Ms. Annukka Lipponen is the Chief Specialist on Water Resources Management. She works at the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry in Finland. And her responsibilities include EU and international water policy, bilateral water cooperation, as well as the promotion of water expertise. Thank you very much. Over to you, Annukka.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Bonjour à tous. Muy buenos días a todos y todas. It's a big pleasure. So thank you so much to the organizers for the kind invitation, and greetings from and regrets from Olli-Matti Verta, the water director, who unfortunately couldn't make it, but is with us in spirit in the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. We value very highly this WOP work and see the value of it. Indeed, we had a call for utilities to apply for the pilot program of WOPs in 2019. The timing was a bit unlucky because of COVID pandemic. Obviously, the pilot project, it had the aim to support Finland's municipality-owned water utilities to participate in international cooperation objectives and provide mentorship to their peer utilities, and also to co-create solutions to achieve SDG 6. And now we're building on this with new investments. We will continue supporting WOP projects, and one concrete opening is ahead, thanks to inclusion of this thematic in the EU Recovery and Resilience Facility action of Finland. And a little bit about the motivations. We see it absolutely crucial for continuous development of Finnish water services sector to follow up on and have this kind of international development and exchange about it, and to import also best international practices through this kind of direct exchange. And obviously, as mentioned already, for interesting new job opportunities, as well as for addressing water challenges globally, this water utilities work is highly relevant. So there is this solidarity thinking behind, but also clearly very direct benefits also for the participating utilities, and also the contribution to climate action in addition to sustainable development. Obviously, water utilities could make significant contribution, and this is not adequately understood, and it's also a kind of communication need that this recognition and relevance should be more widely known, and this should also translate into broader cooperation opportunities and even co-financing opportunities. It's interesting that this kind of cross-sector possibilities have been referred to by some other speakers, and would be good to maybe exchange experience on these. There are various challenges. Unfortunately, the water services sector is perhaps perceived as less attractive than it really is. It is highly innovative. Just thinking about all the smart water solutions, like bringing Internet of Things, connectivity to smart grids, etc. This is exciting, and also again something to communicate about. In Finland, unfortunately, in the development assistance, the water services is underrepresented. There are too few water projects, and this needs really reinforcing. And water utilities obviously are very important partners there, thanks to their peer status or role, and also obviously the expertise that they have. For this exchange of experience, as mentioned, this EU WOP program, we are extremely pleased that one utility from Finland, the Helsinki region's water utility, is partnering with Dutch WAY. In that, this is excellent, and it's absolutely beneficial for European utilities to exchange among themselves also. And this GWOPA platform is functioning very well and has really broad outreach. So this is a great opportunity. Something to perhaps highlight also, reflecting a bit on what Anne de Straat was saying, that the governance aspect is also important to exchange experience about. Indeed, the water utilities, they are embedded in a governance setting, and also the knowledge that the authorities have is valuable to transmit, and how the utilities work in particular environments. And from Finland, the Finnish Water Forum is a very good network to help partnerships to form, and also as a kind of one-stop shop or window for those reaching out from other countries and other regions for Finnish water sector expertise. Also, the Association of Finnish Water Utilities. So this kind of actors are very useful players in the field. Thanks for this opportunity to share. Looking forward to the rest of the discussion.
No, thank you so much, and it's really super exciting to have Finland part of the WOP community. And one of the things that I think is exciting about the EWOP program, and part of its design, was to enable this co-mentoring kind of situation, so that new mentors could learn from peers who have done this kind of mentoring as well. So not just a mentor-mentee situation, but also some co-mentoring, which I think is really critical. So great that Finland and many other countries were able also to get more involved in WOPs in that way. Okay, I will try not to comment too much, as I tend to do, and I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is Mr. Thibaut Chazal, who's a water construction expert at Enabel. And Enabel is the development agency in Belgium. And it's very exciting to have them here and on board, the only development agency that we have with us today. In fact, financiers, as an aside, financiers are not particularly featured in this session, although they're extremely important, obviously, for the enabling environment, particularly because we had a session last week that was also very rich on financing WOP. So I encourage you to look at that if you get a chance. But aside closed, and now back to Enabel, which is involved in the EU WOP program in support of a WOP with one of its Belgian operators and a number of operators in RDC, where they have done some recent investments. So it's connecting these two things, and that was one of the most interesting factors about this particular project. I'd like to hand over to you, Thibaut.
Okay, thank you. Good morning to all of you. So I'm based at the headquarters of Enabel in Brussels. As you said, it's a Belgian development agency, like the GIZ for the German, or AFD for the French. I'm very happy to be here to share our experience in this WOP, but also learn from others, because it's the first time that Enabel is involved in a WOP. And like Melanie said from PSO, we are not directly involved in the WOP, but we have a role of facilitator. This WOP is led by SWDE, which means Société Wallonne des Eaux. It's one of the major water operators in Belgium. And as you said, the beneficiary partners are ASUREP. So in French, it means Association des usagers des réseaux d'eau potable. So basically, in English, Association of Drinking Water User, which are official water operator in DRC. It's important to mention it's official because there is a legal framework related to that in DRC. An additional partner is Forem, who is the Wallon office for training. And Enabel, as I said, so is not directly involved in this WOP, but we play a role of facilitator between the ASUREP that are currently supported by our water project in DRC, and SWDE, who is a key partner for Enabel, and we have a framework agreement with them on technical expertise. We've been working with SWDE for a long time. And just briefly, the water project Enabel is currently running in DRC is related to the extension and consolidation of the management of drinking water supply system based on solar pumping system technology and support to the ASUREP for the management of drinking water supply system. Budget is 13 million euro with approximately 500,000 beneficiaries. So Enabel will accompany the ASUREP until the end of its water program in June 2022. And the commentor, SWDE and Forem, We'll then propose a support for the structural, methodological, and operational capacity building of AzureP. So the aim is to capitalize on the experience acquired during the Enable project by adding the expertise of two major operators in the water and professional training sectors in Belgium. So they will focus on improving the governance, all the aspects related to invoicing, but also technical aspects such in the daily management of the network. Because Enable is a development agency, and we don't have the skill of that a professional water operators can have. So concretely, this WOP, the WOP partner will work in synergy with Enable during the startup phase of the project, because we will be here in DRC until June 2022. This synergy will, the purpose is to ensure an efficient transmission of the project factual element. And also on the other hand, the AzureP need to have the mean of expertise, which is sometimes difficult to provide locally. And indeed, many challenges now will await the AzureP for the daily management of the network. And regarding the constraining factors, the first that I have in mind is that SWDE is obviously based in Belgium and AzureP in DRC. So keeping a good communication might be difficult. We for instance, faced internet connection trouble during the submission phase, even though most of the meetings were in DRC were in Enable premises. And also ECHO mentioned that COVID-19 unfortunately doesn't help. So challenge will be to ensure that the AzureP and the SWD, the link between them work without the intermediation of Enable. A feedback I received from SWDE regarding constraining factors would be to have more flexible financial rule, especially in terms of funding. For instance, they mentioned there is a maximum of 60% for transfer to the additional partner, the forum, who is specialist in training. So this is in line with what Anne proposed initially at the beginning of this panel to have a facilitating WOP so that operators can focus on the core business. So this is the same type of remark. Because as a consequence, WOP targets are based on this constraint, and it may limit the achievement and the utility of the WOP. Regarding the enabling factors, a strong point is to have a handover between Enable and SWDE, the forum, and the AzureP during the startup phase of the project. So it will allow to smooth the process. There is also a strong complementarity between our core business. I can say Enable can bring its expertise of the local context, the governance, the ability to work with local authorities, and so on. But we are not water operators. We build the network in collaboration with the AzureP, but SWD will bring a strong expertise on these subjects. The fact that there is a strong partnership between Enable, SWDE, and the forum, we all have a framework agreement to work together, is also a key element to make this WOP a success, I think. Last point, SWD experience. They engaged for several WOP in the past. I think they also apply for other WOP in the EU WOP process, but unfortunately they didn't pass the selection. But at least they have experience from, I would say, 5 years ago. I don't know exactly, but they have experience in WOP. And last, something very important is the willingness and availability of the AzureP locally to engage in this water program, in this building program, to improve their knowledge, their skill in their daily management. which is also a strong enabling factors. I think, last point, I could go back a bit to that a bit later, but I'm really convinced that the partnership between development agency and water operators could be very relevant for all parties. And I was very happy to listen Arnaud from INPA and then Frodo, who emphasized the necessity for WOP to be supported by multi-actors, public, private, public operators, public agency like Enable. And I think it could be a strong point of this WOP. This is it for me. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to answer to some questions.
Thibault, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for that intervention. Really, I think it's so encouraging that Enabel is sort of seeing how the utilities, its own utilities in Belgian utilities, can be so important in helping to sustain and improve the value of the investments that they're making in these countries. And that collaboration is really, I think, quite encouraging. And we'd like to see more of that kind of thing. And we wish you luck in the EU WOP program, and we'll be in touch on that, of course. And now I would like to pass over to our next speaker, who is Giovanna Gojkovic, from Agua Publica Europea. She's the Senior Officer in External Relations, and where she's worked closely with the association's members to contribute to EU policy discussions and facilitate exchanges around utilities and WOPs. APE has also been a very important partner in the design and thinking about the EU WOP program when we were putting it together, thinking about how this could work best to achieve multiple goals and to provide the most possibility for different European water and sanitation operators to participate. So a lot of the design thinking also we can attribute to them. I'd like Giovanna to take the floor. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Julie. Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry, I feel there's not very much new things to say after this very rich discussion that we've had all morning, but I'll do my best. For those that don't know us yet, Agua Publica Europea is the European Association of Public Water Operators. We are a network of 66 publicly owned water and sanitation utilities, including SWDE in Belgium, Paris, other big cities, but also smaller and more rural areas. And in total, providing services to about 80 million people in 13 European countries. We have been working very closely with GWOPA for a while now, including on the EU WOP program, as mentioned, and as part of the International Steering Committee. So, of course, as the association, the secretariat, we don't take part in the WOPs, but our members do, and this is what I will be presenting. They have been involved with WOPs for many years and have, of course, strong commitments to international development and the realization of the SDG 6. It was confirmed most recently with the involvement of several of our members. If I counted correctly, I think it's 6, from Spain, Germany, Italy, Hungary, and Belgium in the new in the WOP program, in the selected projects for the new WOP program. And many of these projects are actually new relationships, which will help in growing WOPs further. But WOPs, of course, are not new practices at all, as you know very well, and not in the network. Back when the association was created, it was in the founding charter that all the members have to adhere to when they join us, that there was a section on international access to water and sanitation. So this was key for the utilities as a commitment. And to showcase all this work through the years, we have published earlier this year, on the occasion of the EU WOP program launch, a publication that collects experiences that you can see on our website, on aquapublica.eu. It's called Water Operator Partnerships and Solidarity. And essentially, it shows that, of course, there's not one type of WOP. There are different types of projects, different sizes, very limited in scope and also very large, different shapes. different utilities participate, including the big ones that have an international department within themselves and smaller ones. And they can include everything from infrastructure management, reduction of leakage, energy efficiency, but also customer relations, data, and data management and digitalization is really critical, and financial management governance issues. We do see key elements which have been said before, but let me insist on those. The fact that they are solidarity based, not for profit. Essentially, European utilities have nothing to sell. And we conducted an internal survey within our membership a few years ago, asking members what are your main motivations for doing WOPs if you're doing them, but also what are your constraints. And on the motivation, of course, number one, not very surprisingly, was solidarity and willingness to act as public utilities to go and support other peers. And share, number two was share the skills and experience. And I think this is also what the Spanish colleague has mentioned earlier. There's this really internal willingness to go and share what we know with others for the increased access to water and sanitation on a global level. And these are peer-to-peer projects, so they are really on the personal level, from professional to professional, who work from with the same goals and same ideals, just in different contexts. And I will just mention here one quote we have from our Spanish member in Seville. I'm sorry, maybe I'm working too fast. Apologize, Julie. But the quote says, we realize that our management processes are not so different, and we can learn from each other. We're technical staff working for water operators. This is what they told us, and this is what exactly peer-to-peer, person-to-person, technical professional to technical professional it is. And to be sustainable through time, as we've mentioned also, the importance of the long-term aspect. There are components for training which empower, and again, there's nothing to be sold here. So this is to empower the mentee utilities to benefit from this experience, to define afterwards their own solutions that respond to their own needs in the long term, rather than being dependent on external expertise. And this allows then afterwards these skills to transfer further. And of course, governance components, which are key to support capacity development. And for this, I will just quickly refer you to the OECD principles on water governance and why it matters to improve governance on all levels. Finally, the final driver for the utilities, as has been mentioned by many colleagues so far, is that since there are no profit-making ambitions, there are still benefits for everybody involved, including the European utilities taking part. And this is the motivation to have an enriching experience that can help learn from other contexts and other technical conditions, that challenges approaches and supports the development of skills, but also motivates and attracts staff in a sector that needs to motivate and attract staff. And especially young people that are motivated by the international aspect, because water management tends to be very local. This brings a whole new dimension to the work, and therefore supports the attractiveness of this sector. I will note also from this same survey a few constraints that were pointed out. Again, nothing very groundbreaking here. There need to be technical experts available to travel and be absent and be replaced at their home utility through this time. So this means there needs to be capacity to cover the costs, but also administrative capacity for planning these things, hiring people, making sure that the needs are covered locally. And while we know that WOPs, of course, can bring great benefits with relatively low funding, financial resources are another issue, as you know very well. There needs to be, personal costs covered, but also traveling, basic equipment, infrastructure. There are costs related to participating. And WOPs do require contribution from the mentor utility. And so, as there in some countries, there is a framework that facilitates this. Thank you for the French presentation. It's not the same everywhere. So capacity may be insufficient for utilities interested in participating in WOPs, in particular in smaller ones, and we do believe that smaller ones have also things to bring. So this should really be considered. Yes, just going back on the long-term aspects, because relations are based on trust. And so one, we need to support new partnerships where there is no historic relation in place between utilities. Oftentimes they take place between utilities that have a historic relation, but we need to bring more into this so that it can really grow globally. And the EU WOP program, as you mentioned, Julie, earlier, I think it was a great step towards that with the different elements we tried to bring into this. And the policy framework, critical to enabling WOPs. By recognizing their potential, this is the first element. I think it's very basic, but it's really important to recognize that WOPs are an effective, cost-efficient way to improve water and sanitation access in the world. Setting a right context for WOPs to flourish, and having long enough timeframes to allow the WOPs to be prepared, which requires administrative effort, we know, to be developed and to be strengthened over time so that the capacity and resilience can be built in a sustainable way. Thank you.
Giovanna, thanks so much. It's even if it's nice to hear that your comments reiterate what others have said, but I think there are also some nice like new insights there as well, such as the value of the motivations being institutional but also individual in a way, and not to forget that as well, that it actually in the end it's between people, and the interest of employees to engage in this kind of thing is really meaningful, and the values that they bring to it, the technical expertise they bring to it, all of these things actually matter. So thanks a lot for that. Okay, I will stop talking, and I would like for our speakers to have the opportunity to ask one another questions. First person who had their hand up was Ms. Leponen from Finland. If you could please ask your question, I think it was to Melody from PSO.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I had a challenge with the mic.
We can hear you.
Actually, Heiko was referring to a related matter, so I could address the question to both of them, because both were referring to opportunities for the utilities related to kind of cross-sectoral cooperation. Heiko mentioned specifically links to like solid waste management, for example, or energy. It would be interesting to hear how you see the benefits for the utilities in terms of efficiency or improved co-financing or whatever, and maybe how do you see if there's value in exchanging experience on this?
Frodo, are
Je
you?
commence?
Oh yeah, there you are. Your microphone is off.
Oh, okay.
Melody, I'm sorry, Melody. Go ahead, Melody, go ahead.
Ok. Oui, je m'entends. Les entreprises publiques, effectivement, qui gèrent l'exploitation des ouvrages d'eau et d'assainissement, sont tout à fait pertinentes à mobiliser dans des partenariats WOP, puisqu'elles peuvent faire bénéficier de leurs compétences, des compétences reliées aux fonctions qu'elles exercent sur le territoire français. Après, avec la petite difficulté, mais voilà, la nécessité d'une coordination avec, en France, l'entité qui a la possibilité juridique et financière de se mobiliser à l'international, qui est plutôt la collectivité territoriale qui détient les compétences d'eau et d'assainissement, sachant que les entreprises publiques sont reliées à ces collectivités territoriales, Mais c'est vraiment la collectivité territoriale qui prend la décision, qui délibère la décision. Donc, il y a une coordination à avoir, mais voilà. Après, peut-être que j'ai pas très bien compris la question, mais en tout cas, voilà, aussi bien les collectivités territoriales qui organisent les services que leurs exploitants privés ou publics sont tout à fait pertinents à mobiliser dans les partenariats WOP de par les compétences qu'ils ont en termes d'organisation de services, de gestion des ouvrages, de gouvernance des services, de gestion du patrimoine. Donc tout ça, ce sont des compétences, des expertises qui sont pertinentes et utiles à faire profiter pour en faire profiter les partenaires dans les collectivités locales d'autres pays et leurs opérateurs d'eau d'assainissement.
Merci, Melody. Annika, I know that question might apply to others, but I'm going to ask as well. That's why I accidentally referred to Frodo, because I thought he might also have a reply. But I will now pass it over to Anne Lestrade, who had a question as well. And some of these questions we can follow up on later. Anne.
So, excuse me, Julie, I didn't raise my hand. I have no question.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
so maybe it's better to let the floor to the speakers, Frodo and the others who asked some question.
Sure, my apologies. I thought you had a question earlier. Yes, I'm going to hand over to the speakers. I first want to draw. We've encouraged the participants in the outside world to join us, and there was one question in the chat. So I would like. It comes from. It's directed, I think, at Frodo in particular, relating to the Netherlands. It would be great to know how the 1% rule was created in the Netherlands, and I would imagine in France as well, the parallel there, Oudin Saint-Denis. And what were the motivations, obstacles, key supporting actors, etc. If this is something that you're able to comment on, Frodo.
Yeah, of course. And a great question. Nice to have the interaction. I was trying to see when that sort of 1% rule was established, but I think it was around 2008 or so. But then it sort of the motivation was there to make sure that we could share our knowledge overseas. So I think it has sort of to do with sort of CSR, more aid related collaboration. So how can we support other utilities across the globe with the knowledge that we obtained in the years? So it felt like that was sort of one of the reasoning. I think over the years we developed and professionalized that, because in the beginning it was sort of suddenly there was a 1% rule, and we started to do international collaboration. And I think over the years we professionalized that in having these indicators and sort of frameworks around it. And the other thing is really important that the Dutch water sector started to work together, and that's what was mentioned together with VEI, Fides International. To start to work together with all the utilities. That became the Waterworks program. So instead of all the utilities working on their own countries, on their own knowledge exchange, we grouped that. So I think that's one. So that's learning by doing. I think that's close collaboration with the ministries. It's with the drinking water sector. It's with the authorities. So the water authorities followed later, but also an allocation of their resources. So I will share, I hope to find somewhere a sort of an international English related article about it, because it's also constantly monitored and evaluated to see where we can improve it. But the key thing is to share across, and the nowadays movement is to, of course, exchange knowledge. So it's really a collaboration peer to peer. And I think as a concrete example for Waternet, what we do, it's not as a side product. It's a core activity within the DNA of the organization. So it's not we do our work and we do also something internationally. It should be at the core of what we do. And it's even as we have discussions that sometimes vacancies are not fulfilled in Amsterdam. I think if I'm listening to all of you, there are certain positions that are already crucial in your own utility. And that certain position is also required in another utility. So for me to be able to move one of my colleagues to share expertise out of Amsterdam is sometimes hard. So it's already hard to fulfill a vacancy. And what we now try to do, for instance, that we say as a procurement function or asset management, you can work for 80% in Amsterdam and for 1 day a week in Jordan. And that's of course virtually, and once every half year or so there's a visit. But to also change your vacancies to make sure that that international perspective is within the core of your utility.
This is so interesting. I mean, I think one of the most important topics for exchange between enablers is this 1%, of course, because it's extremely powerful as a tool. I mean, it's one of many possible enabling tools, but it's a really big one. And where it exists, of course, more and more WOPs are possible. So I think there's really an opportunity for a lot of exchange. There's also been efforts to do this more at a European level.
One more thing, Julie, because I think it's also, of course, the city of Amsterdam for the drinking water and the water authority Amstel-Gooi-Vecht. So they sort of contribute, they trust the work of World WaterNet. But from that sort of 1%, and I think it's sort of, let's say on a yearly base, it's 1.5 million as a contribution. We make it sort of 8 million. So I think it's also for the Dutch government with co-funding and other funders as the EU. It also gives a leverage. So the 1.5 that is sort of as a contribution, we can make it 8 by co-funding. I think that's sort of the impact story that also the Dutch government says, hey, this is interesting. Because we can put some own money in it, but then it's sort of leverage with other partners that we work with. So I think that's also good to sort of express here.
Absolutely. That is a really important point, Frodo. I don't know if Melody had anything to add on the 1%, if she knows about the history there, but I think we're getting close to the end of the session. Actually, Melody, I'm gonna take back my offer to let you have the floor. If there are any other rapid questions from panelists, we're not getting any from the floor, but maybe from one speaker to another. Before we wrap up, Anne Lestrade, would you like to make any comments about this session? I know it's extraordinarily early for you over there, so you might not have had the ability to like summarize things in your mind. If not, I can tell me. Yes.
Yeah, it's quite early. So no, I don't want to summarize, but I'm very eager to have any feedback on the draft report we sent to you. So really, please feel free to add any ideas, recommendation, to share any documents, because I really would like to rewrite it. So thank you very much for your participation in advance on this collective work.
Thanks so much, Anne, as well, for your preparation of this. I think the paper is really interesting, and as Anne has said, it would definitely be great for us if we could have your feedback on it. But it's also just a starting point for a longer conversation that we want to have with you. And I am going to just share with you right now a slide or two. Are you seeing this in full screen? So as you know, this discussion is linked in many ways to the EU WOP program that GWOPA and UN Habitat is doing with the support and involvement of the European Union. That's funding 22 WOPs around the world. And this is, an extremely important, exciting initiative for us. First, because it's like a big statement from the EU about their interest and their commitment and their belief in this, in the WOP potential, and the ability for utilities to really support their peers to make significant changes where they're needed. And so this is the basis for this discussion. but we're trying to make use of this project so that it's not just 22 individual projects, but that there's we're mobilizing energy from all of them and working together to achieve a few different things. And one of them is definitely to try to build capacity and support for WOPs longer term to be more common, more effective, more sustainable. And the focus of this group is, of course, on Europe for now. It's not that this effort doesn't need to happen everywhere, but right now we want to gather these European operators in particular, or those enablers, let's say, that are involved in the European WOP projects or not, including those of you here today who may not be involved in the EU WOP, or those who are listening on the outside. We would really like you to join with us if you're interested in knowing more about how these kinds of these projects are enabled. And so what we're proposing is a group that is going to take run the course of the EU WOP project. So over the next few years, this is going to be an open group, and we plan to have 2 or 3 events every year, discussions, workshops, meetings, and where we're tackling some of the key issues that are important to making these WOPs happen. The focus of these discussions will be yours. It'll be based on the interests of its members, its participants. And so we encourage you even now just to share, your keywords. We've taken a lot of messages from this discussion already about what is important to be sharing on. And it'll be supported by us with the GWOPA together with our partners at IHE, at UNESCO, the BWOP project, to document what's coming out of the EU project. We'll be documenting some of these advocacy cases. It's an ongoing work, so there'll be this interaction between the discussion and then these products that we come out with, so that we can discuss them, such as the paper that Anne has produced today, and which I remind you again is available in the session page if you scroll down. So who can join this group? And I underline that it's not a fixed group. You're welcome to come and go, but we would like you to express your interest so you can be invited to these events. And includes all those kinds of actors, those categories of actors who have a role in contributing in some way to enabling these WOPs. So this is, national governments, also local and regional ones, regulators, utilities, of course, and then development banks and civil society organizations who are also not so featured here today, but which have a huge role also in helping to scale up this practice and make it sustainable and effective. And the role of this group would be just to learn and exchange, as we've done today, have more of these kinds of conversations, and as I said, draw insights and experience from the EU WOP program as it's going forward, in addition to other relevant initiatives in parallel, and also together to try to build some collective European momentum for WOP scale up beyond this period. So if you're interested, then please give us an email. I mean, we will reach out to several groups in our network as well. But please also indicate your interest. We would love to have you as part of the group. We will finish with a little video. I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to finish with a video, but before the video comes, I want to say thank you, a huge thank you to everyone who has shared their time and experience and wisdom today. I appreciate it a lot. I think it was a really interesting session. And thank you very much also to the interpreters for managing to draw out messages from the very quick presentations that were given. And to everyone else, thank you very much.
What? Already over? No, we have plenty more options to continue.
No, that was just a goodbye. Yes, thumbs up. Thank you. Bye-bye. Au revoir.
What? Already over? No, we have plenty more options to continue the discussions and peer exchange beyond the Congress.
Tell me more. What are the options?
Well, SHIWOPA membership, for example. By becoming a member of SHIWOPA, everyone can connect to a global alliance of practitioners and experts. There are two ways of becoming a member. First, institutional members. Institutions can participate in SHIWOPA's assemblies and are eligible to run and vote in its international steering committee elections. Or second, individual members. Individuals can connect and engage with peers in the online SHIWOPA community. We have created a space that allows for networking and easy communication. Meet future WOP partners, stay up to date on project opportunities, and participate in peer-to-peer learning opportunities.
Sounds great. How can I join?
Simply go to www.shiwopa.org and register for free. If you want to know more, you can follow SHIWOPA on social media and subscribe to the newsletter. Thanks for joining the 4th Global WOPs Congress. We'll see you soon.